Hello, hello, hello. It's Melanie here. Welcome to our Profit Amplifier Secrets Live. Today, we are talking about how to cultivate centers of influence. So if you have ever wondered, how do I really accelerate getting ideal clients into my offerings? How do I really make marketing easier, right? Isn't that really what we all want? How do we attract more of our ideal clients with less cost, less wasted effort? What we're going to talk about today, I have found to be one of the most fun and easiest ways to start creating a flood of ideal business coming in. So if you caught last week's Amplify Your Success podcast episode, you know the power of values and how values can open things up. If you're in the Own Your Bold inner circle, this month we are focused on how to partner up profitably. So there's a lot of nuances about the partnering side, but today I really just want to hone in on this conversation about what is the center of influence and how can we initiate them and how can we nurture them. So let me unpack this a little bit. And if you want to ask a question, please feel free to do that. I will pop in and check your questions now and again. But I want to make sure that I really lay the groundwork for a very powerful way to attract more of your best clients, your best sales, and highly profitable opportunities. And it's almost like if you've ever watched certain people that you might consider influencers or people who are experts in their field, and you're like, how do they get asked to do all these great events, right? Well, when you are nurturing your centers of influence, that's what's happening. People invite the people they know, like, and trust to opportunities first. So if you want to get in on these great opportunities, you've got to nurture this. You've got to be the initiator of these things. So here's what we're going to do. First of all, today is an action opportunity for you. I want you to get intentional today. I want you to take these ideas that we're opening up and not just think of them as a nice idea, but really implement something that you learned today. Because guess what? Information is only as good as the action you take on it. And I'm giving you a goldmine opportunity to use this today. All right, so what is a center of influence? This is one of the questions I got asked as I was starting to talk about centers of influence. So let's just paint the picture. What is it? Someone who's a center of influence is the person who, when they start talking about something, when they start sharing about something, people listen and they follow the lead of the influencer. Okay, now I'm not talking about a Kardashian who's, tweeting about something and everybody goes and rushes to it. I'm not talking about people that are paid to represent products. Those are all influencer strategies, but that's kind of beyond the realm we're talking about. I'm talking about everyday experts and authorities and people who have their own business, who they like somebody, they like something, they start talking about it, they share it with their audience, and it generates trusted advice that other people will follow. So that's basically what we're talking about here with centers of influence. And anyone can nurture these kinds of relationships. Anyone can create these kind of relationships. But that was actually one of the most asked questions, especially over on Instagram when I started talking about centers of influence. People were asking, how do you initiate these kinds of relationships? Well, I think the most important thing we have to do first is figure out who is one in our field. And secondly, we have to get intentional. So let's talk about this. How do you know someone's a center of influence in your industry, right? Well, we know there's somebody who, when they start talking about something and they start mentioning someone's name, people listen and they take action. They'll follow their advice and work with them if it's the right fit. But you also need to make sure that this is somebody, if it's a good center of influence for you to nurture a relationship with, that they serve your ideal audience. Why is this important? Well, let me just tell you, I've learned this very expensive lesson several times over, and I have some really amazing friends who are influential in their work, and they are big name authors or speakers or whatever, right? And I've nurtured these relationships, genuine friendships, for years and years and years. And of course, they would be happy to help me. But what I've noticed is we don't all serve the same audiences. So you don't necessarily want to tap into one of these centers of influence if they don't serve your clients, because all you're doing is sending a flood of unaligned potential buyers into your marketing sphere and then getting confused. And these are the most costly people to try and enroll into your programs, because they're trusting the advice of the friend or the trusted advisor, and they're going, oh, this person's got something amazing. And the next thing you know, they are buying from you, but they don't need what you're selling them. So they're out. They're asking for a refund, or they're not really your best clients. They're the most difficult people. So it helps to really pay attention and really focus this particular strategy on people who really serve your audience already. So if you don't know who your audience is, this is the next step for you. And I would highly recommend spending some time on it when, all the members of Own Your Bold Inner Circle, this is what we do. We get really clear who our ideal audience is. It's one of the 4 fundamental steps we take to have more impact, have more sales, is you got to know who your ideal clients are. And then you look at who is selling, who is already an expert that serves this audience. So one of the trifectas is they serve your audience, and they are creating a problem that you are really good at solving. So here's how this all initially worked for me. And I want to share a story because I think you'll probably see yourself in it, and you can get some wisdom from this and be able to replicate it in your own business and in your own life. And that is, when I first started my business 20 years ago, I was connecting and networking with some really big movers and shakers who happened to be in the Southern California area. We were all going to networking groups that I was running, and they were marketers. So they were teaching people all these things that they needed to do. But what was happening is they were making their communities really overwhelmed. Their clients were not implementing fast enough because they were like, oh my God, I can't keep up with this. So their brilliance, their great work in the world was actually making their clients super overwhelmed and weren't taking action. And so I was really good at getting people out of overwhelm. And hence these perfect aligned partnerships would evolve. So who out there in your industry is serving your ideal clients, and maybe the work they're doing, they're creating a need for what you do. Now, that doesn't have to be the perfect fit. It could be they're doing something slightly different than you. And so there's this potential to collaborate and connect and support each other. But you want to look for people who are already like what they do is creating massive movement in the industry, because the energy and the momentum will be bigger. Now, there's a third piece of this trifecta. So they serve your audience, they're creating a need for what you do. But the third piece is you share values. And I'll tell you that you can have flash in the pan partnerships that are great, but if you don't have shared values, it won't last. And shared values basically means that you are tuning into what's important to them, what are their priorities, how do they sort, for priorities in the world. Because some people will be money driven and some people will be impact driven. And if you're trying to partner up with money-driven people, when you're an impact-driven people, you will oftentimes feel at odds. There will be this discourse that comes up. It's a little bit hard to overcome. Sometimes you'll have people that are very much like, you have to be someone who's really good at selling and enrolling if you want to come and collaborate with us. And other people are like, hey, I just want you to share something valuable. And I don't really care about how much you sell. I just want my community to get great value from it. So you have to know what's important to you, and this will create partnerships that last a lifetime, that are not just like a one-off. It's like, okay, that was interesting, didn't really do anything, but it was great practice, right? Like, you want to cultivate relationships with people that will continue to pay off for years. I have partnerships with centers of influence, 20 years later, we are still supporting each other. We are still inviting each other to speak or get on a podcast or come to this event with some muckety mucks, right? And that's because when you find people that you really like and you really like get each other and you know there's value there, you want to continue to nurture it. So that is kind of the big picture of what's possible. Now, I was asked, how do you initiate? How do you get these doors open, right? Well, I thought I would share some creative ways that you can do this too. And if you've got some creative ways, feel free to share it in the thread below. Like, let's make this a brainstorming opportunity, because I certainly don't have the have all the answers on this. I just know what I've coached my clients around and what works for me. But one of the things is to be really intentional. So when you know who you want to target, like this is kind of the trifecta for me, then, and you start to like build a list of names, like write down who would be ideal. It's interesting how many people kind of fly by night. And, you know, sometimes people will cross your path that you don't know are there until you meet them, but you can also get very strategic and, all right, well, these people, this person serves my audience. I feel like there's great synergy between what they teach and what I teach. And I'm going to look for an opportunity to open the door and nurture that relationship. I'll tell you a story of how that showed up recently for me. So think about, what can you do to add value first? This is a misunderstood concept because we think, everybody thinks like they have the most amazing thing on the planet. Well, you know, busy people don't always see your unique stuff the way you do. And you've got to really like be intentional about how you open up the Goldmine side of it. So I always say, start by giving first. Invite them to a podcast. Start sharing some of their stuff on social media. Look at where they're going to be speaking and go to an event where they're speaking and you know, be bold enough to go up and say hi and get to know them a little bit. Buy their stuff, right? Like you can buy a $200 product and get on someone's radar, and it can take you years to open a door by just knocking on it going, hey, will you promote my stuff? If ever. It's amazing what people will forget is possible. Hey, join their mastermind, join their group program, get on their radar, especially if there's like a little, you know, maybe like they're much more mature in their business trajectory, and maybe you're starting out more, or maybe you feel like they're really well known and you're not as well known yet. Remember I said yet. Don't be afraid to invest in opening the door to relationships. It's a beautiful way, and busy people, it's hard to get on their radar. So this might be your path. Another thing that you can do is be the influencer they need. So in your life right now, you have access to resources, you have access to ideas, you have access to tools, you have access to processes, you have access to people that your ideal center of influence probably needs. So one of the tricks, or I should say a tip, to start opening up these doors is figure out what they need and then connect them with it. Okay, so being a trusted advisor is a great way to build rapport, build connection, and to give first. I recommend to all the clients in my mastermind program to establish themselves on an authority platform. If you don't know what that is, you're going to definitely want to take the Own Your Bold Challenge in the fall. We will start letting you know about it in a couple months. But an authority platform is basically when you have some kind of highly visible platform that you share your message from. And one of the best ways to endear yourself to a center of influence is to have a podcast or a summit or a series that you invite to showcase them into. Now, podcasts are easy because you don't always ask people to promote a podcast. If you do, it's great, but podcasts are a great way to stand out. Doing Facebook Lives when you invite someone in. Look, you are building up good credits. You are building up a connection with that person. And it is actually one of the best ways to get those doors open, especially with people that are hard to get to. So I hope I'm giving you some creative ways to start thinking outside the box, start thinking strategic, like getting really intentional. How could you open a door that may feel closed? Or start to be more cognizant of the people in your space that you're like, hey, it might be really good to like try and nurture this one a little bit more. So try this for the next 30 days. Pick 5 people that you'd like to connect with more. Follow them on at least 1 or 2 social media sites and start sharing their stuff. And if you've got a platform that you interview people on, invite them into it after you've shared their stuff a few times. It works like a gold mine. And it's also a great way to see, is there some win-win rapport there? Can lean into some conversation that you have. Now, not everybody's going to play nice. Not everybody's going to be the fit, but at least you can test the waters and start by adding some goodwill. It was actually one of the reasons why I went back into podcasting. Is you would not believe how many people pitch me to get on this podcast. And I say yes to a very small fraction. They've got to really have something I think you guys would be interested in. But if I do open up that door, you would not believe the number of times that just a conversation we have in the green room prepping for the interview opens up some possibility that I didn't even know was there. Now, I said I would share an example of how this kind of played out recently. There's a woman I met at an event, which again is another great way to go connect with influencers. And I invited her on my podcast because I felt that her topic would be very perfect. It was on intuition. I'm really big on how to hone in and use your intuition. And she came back later and asked me if I would be in her summit. And if I didn't know her, I probably wouldn't. But because she was at that event, she made a point of coming up and talking to me and really bonding with me. And we shared some great conversation about the way she does her work. And I really believe in it. And I liked who she was. Because of that, I said yes to being in her summit, where normally I probably would have said no, because I don't say yes to a lot of summits because I can't, be involved in everything that comes our way. So this is why you want to really start nurturing and being intentional with those relationships. Keep the conversations going. All right, so I'm going to see if I can check in without being too annoying and having my Facebook blow up here. I just want to see. Hi, Linda. Hi, Chris. Hi, Lorianne. Nice to see you guys. Let me know if you have any questions about centers of influence and how we can start to cultivate those relationships for you. I will definitely do some Q&A here in a little bit. Now, let's see. Where am I at? Okay, so another piece of this intentional action to open up these relationships is to figure out what's important to them. And this is going to come from a conversation. So again, if you have a podcast or you're inviting them into some kind of visibility, well, this is an easy thing to do, right? Because you're going to have a conversation. But if you don't have a way to engage them, you're going to have to figure out how to open up this conversation and figure out what's important to them. Here's why I think this is really valuable. Not everybody's motivated by money. Not everybody's motivated by just making a difference in the world. You've got to figure out what lights the fire of this person. What are they passionate about? What do they value right now? And how can you create exposure for them? I've watched a couple really cool ways recently that anybody can do at any time. And one of them is using Twitter. Now I'm super active on Twitter. I have a huge following over there. And so I tend to get a lot of traction on that site as well as Instagram. Facebook, not so much, but we're trying. But with the Facebook group here, we love. Now, what I've noticed is in these different forums, it works a little bit differently, but you want to start a conversation. And you could say, tell me one project or one goal you're super passionate about right now. And then what you can do is start to follow up with people when they are sharing what they're passionate about, what they're interested in. Now, you may need to tag people to get those things going. But once you do, it's really interesting how it can open up really powerful conversations and open a door that may have felt closed. Now, there's some other things that are really active right now, especially on Instagram. So Instagram, I don't want to get into an Instagram class, but let's just say the algorithms are really challenging, just like Facebook. And so one of the little hacks to get more Instagram traction is to create Instagram circles. These are people who, when you post, they go and they comment and like your post and share your post and stuff like that. And it's just a way that people can help each other. Well, I truly believe if you want to develop more of a strong connection with other centers of influence, invite them to be collaborative supporters in an Instagram group or in a Facebook group or in some other way. I have people who like to host networking lunches for influencers, or a dinner that you host. I mean, everybody pays to come. Don't think you're supposed to pay for it all, but you bring people together who are influencers in different spaces and you get them connecting with each other. So 3 things happen. 1, you are the leader, which gives you instant influence. 2, you're creating value because you're solving a problem, which is people want more visibility, they want more traction, or they want more connections, and you're facilitating a way to get what they want. And 3, you're opening a door to people you may or may not already know. So I've been in some of these groups on Instagram, and I have met people that I would never have met otherwise, or at least it might have taken me years. And now we have this camaraderie and this like, yeah, I got your back, we'll support this. People willing to step up and like promote things, or, you know, for the upcoming Own Your Bold Influence Challenge, they're like, hey, yeah, I want to be one of your partners. I'll promote it for you. I'll be one of the influencers in your influencer series. So all this stuff starts to get created because you took the initiative and you created influencer groups of your own. So let me know if you want me to unpack that a little bit more. I think you probably get the point, but just know anytime you take the lead, you are instantly setting yourself in the influencer position. And when you invite other influential people in, you're now borrowing influence from the people you bring into this process. So that's another great way you can do this. All right, so let's talk about nurturing, because this is where it falls apart, right? Let me just check in, see if any questions are coming up first. Okay, great. How did you get these cool podcast clips on Twitter? Oh, okay. I will talk about that, Chris. Remind me in a minute. Yes, that's another great little technique. Okay, so let's talk about nurturing. So what I've seen happen a lot of times is people go through all the effort to initiate these great relationships, and then it falls apart, right? Nobody really nurtures them. I want you to really keep in mind that it's your job to nurture them, and to really have the expectation going in that you can be the person who creates a lifetime of great opportunities because you're the initiator and the nurturer. Now, this is where tools come in handy. And I'm actually going to share some of these tools in more depth in the Own Your Bold Inner Circle, because we're actively focused on partnering this month. Well, it's really important to have tools to do that. And I just was exposed to something called Cloze, CLOZE.com. Now, I haven't actually started using it, but we're going to use it. It's a really simple contact management system. You can even just use a spreadsheet, but whatever you do, have a way to get intentional. Here's my top 10 list of people I want to partner with. I want to nurture relationships with. I'd like to start creating new opportunities with. I'd love to get invited to their events. Figure out how to meet them, figure out how to nurture them. And nurturing could look like you are sharing their social media actively. You've joined their mastermind group or their coaching program and you're active in it. You're in a group like this and you're active here. You're staying on the radar, right? I know who's active here. I see who stays involved and asks questions and shares, and you're on my radar. So guess what? I'm 10 times more likely to give you more visibility, to support when I see you posting, to if you've got a question, I'm 10 times more likely to make sure I go out of my way to answer it, right? So when you are active, it makes you're on the other person's radar and it makes them more likely to want to give back to you. So be willing to keep adding value, keep the conversation going. Now, if you've moved it from, hey, I know you on social media, to there's a live connection, be willing to initiate like a lunch or a coffee or even a phone call. I have a friend who I've known for probably 10 years, but we never really had a conversation. We would just bump into each other. And recently we both ran into each other at an event, and she looked at me, she goes, I really want to have a friendship with you. And I'm like, great, I want to have a friendship with you too. Let's take this out of the random bump to each other. And next thing I know, she was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. Why don't you come? Like, I'll feature you, right? So it went from we just bump into each other to there's an opportunity. She's opening the door, because we went from casual bumping into each other to let's be more intentional about nurturing this relationship. That's what nurturing is about. So now I'll text her once in a while and go, hello, what are you doing? What's going on? You know, tell me what's up for you, instead of just waiting to bump into each other. Let's talk about the transforming into a gold mine. Okay. And then I'm going to cover pitfalls. And then I want to hear, like, who's on your intentionality list? How can you move this up a couple notches? So you can open up these conversations with great people. You can nurture these relationships, but you've got to, at some point, tap into their powerful network and initiate business. Here's a few tips. First of all, in the nurturing sequence, in the nurturing stages, figure out a way to showcase the brilliant work you do in the world. This was a really costly but very powerful moment, learning for me many years ago, when I was in a mastermind with some very high profile people, and nothing was really moving, nothing was really happening. And all of a sudden, one of the women in the group was dealing with a problem I knew I could solve. So, and I don't recommend this all the time, but maybe as a first door opener, I said, hey, look, this is something I do all day long. If you're willing, because it was an assessment that I use, said, if you're willing to pay for the assessment, I'll give you I will give you a consultation, and I think I can solve your problem. She was basically having a major breakdown with someone in her business world. And so I illuminated very quickly what was going on. And she was like, oh my God, okay, I want to buy some coaching time. So she went from someone who was a peer in my mastermind group who really didn't get what I did to, oh my God, I'm hiring you, to putting me on every one of her webinars and events for 5 years. So what the opportunity was solve a problem she was struggling with. And you're not going to be able to do that in every single case, but anytime something you know you can do is basically an opportunity to solve a problem and give them clarity of what you do, it can be a major door opener. Now, the line here is you don't keep giving things away for free all the time, right? But you're willing to give somebody a taste. It could be a lead magnet. It could be, you know, you're willing to give them a consultation. It could be you've got a online course and you're like, hey, look, I'm willing to give you access to this, but if you like it, I'd love for you to share it with your community, right? How can you move it from a nice relationship, solve a problem, get the business store open? This is how you move from obscurity to authority, is you move out of just being someone that's nice and they're like, oh, well, that's great, to, oh, now I know how to do this. All right, so I'm just checking it. Okay, see, yeah, I'm following you on Twitter. Makes total sense. Great, good. I'm glad you guys are following along. So let's talk about some ways that you can make it not work. The pitfalls, the things that basically can make a relationship with a center of influence crumble. First of all, not having a consistent way to connect. I like getting into masterminds, getting into groups with people, and then nurturing those relationships because you have an embedded way to meet with them all the time. But if that's not a potential, how could you make a routine of connecting with this person? Because if you're not connecting all the time, it's very easy to get off the radar. Another pitfall, pitching a JV opportunity cold. So just because someone's on your radar and you think they're serving your ideal audience, you will kill the potential relationship if you go in too hot, too fast. I'm not a fan of just pitching JVs and, like, even if you do, this is a line, but if you don't know the person and you haven't really created some goodwill on their podcast and said, hey, I love your podcast, and shared it a few times, and you just pitch yourself, I don't really think it's great. It doesn't usually work. So cultivate, warm them up before you pitch them something. Create some goodwill. I know it's a lot of extra effort, but if the effort pays off, it's worth every penny, right? You know who's someone who's really, really good at this? Bob Burg. Bob Burg's one of the authors of the Go-Getter series. Sorry, not the Go-Getter, the Go-Giver series, the books. He is so brilliant at giving first, nurturing those relationships, sharing stuff on social media, being really intentional. And then he might ask you to do something down the road. He very rarely does, but he knows by just giving, you're going to want to have that reciprocity and you'll support him back. Another pitfall is dropping the ball. If you're going to get a relationship going, don't drop the ball. Don't not deliver. Don't, blow it, for basically a better way to say it, but don't open the door and then not follow through. Last pitfall I just want to bring your attention to is having unspoken or misaligned expectations. This can really blow up in your face. It can make you feel like this isn't working for you. It might make you feel frustrated. If you're going in with expectations and you're not communicating them, you're not clarifying them with this person early on, it's natural to have desires and wants. And of course, we're setting an intention to partner up at some point. But at a certain point, you know what? It may not work. It may not be a fit. It's not a tit for tat world. You're not always going to get the support by giving first. But what you are doing is you're moving positive energy, and there's something that will come out of it that will pay off in the end. So be willing to go in and start to nurture and develop and see where it goes. If you are going to move it into a more a more specific type partnership, like we've been talking about in Own Your Bold Inner Circle this month, then you're going to want to be really clear about your expectations. Here's what I need to get out of it if we're going to move this forward, and what are they going to want to get out of it? Talk money, talk conversion, talk, what does a good relationship look like when you're promoting each other? Be upfront so you can see if it's really a good fit. But when you're nurturing centers of influence, especially if they've got a really high visibility level and you're newer at this game and you're still cultivating some of your influence, just know you may prime this pump for a while before it takes off and really delivers what you are imagining you want out of it. Okay, so some questions. Linda's asking, if I'm changing my group of focus, how do I do this? Okay, this is really good. Now, Linda's in the mastermind. So Linda, we could certainly do a deep dive on this in some private coaching time, but let me give you some ideas here. The best way to open this up is to start with looking at who's already serving your audience, and do you have some kind of relationship with them in any way, shape, or form? Are you in a group together? Do you, or are they in a group that you maybe want to join? Do you share some social media? Can you give them some social media love? Can you start sharing to your community some things that you love that they're doing, right? Like, how could you bring some attention into the connection between the two of you? But it starts by getting really, really intentional about people who are influential in the communities that you want to serve. So for you, because I know you want to bring this new movement out, that your life matters, what I would look at is who are some people that are already creating movements around this. We talked earlier about A.G. Morshadi, who is major momentum. They've got a lot of big things going on. Maybe they've got a podcast, maybe they've got a Facebook group, maybe they are very active on social media, and start to pay attention to what they're sharing, what they're interested in, engage with them. You can always have a social media person help with this if that's too much for you. How could you give value first, right? Now, we've talked about you starting a TV show, an online TV show. One potential way is to get very intentional about your top 10 influencers that do something that your audience would get value from, interview them, bring them into your show, add value first, give them exposure, use this as a chance to open up about what you're doing. And then, basically find out what kind of speaking, what kind of podcasts are they doing, what kind of events are they hosting, and, put yourself out there to say, like, hey, I have a talk around this. Would that ever be a fit for your audience? I have done that so often. Okay. Now, one last tip I forgot to mention earlier. A lot of us are in different groups and we've never reached out and got to know the other people. So I would highly recommend that you start getting really intentional and start reaching out and get to know the other people that you believe are influencers that could open up doors for you. So let's say you're in a group of with marketers, or you're in a group with other coaches, or you're in a group with other service professionals like yourself. Pick up the phone, look for the people that what they post about, what they talk about is intriguing to you, and say, hey, would you be up for getting to know each other? You'd be amazed how many people say yes. You have a conversation, share what you're doing. If there's no big love there, hey, it was really nice to meet you. Keep me posted on how I can support you. 9 out of 10 times, you'll be blown away how many people are like, hey, happy to support your next thing you're doing. Let's do it. All right, so Chris is asking about, now Chris is going on a completely different thread, but she's asking about how we get those podcast clips on Twitter. I have a tool that we do for that, so I will share it in the comments afterwards. I'll pull the link for you and you can check it out. But yes, it's really catchy and it's a great way to get more exposure to your podcast episodes. Okay, let me know if you guys have any other questions. I'm going to go back to some of the questions that came in earlier. Someone was asking, what do you do if you're developing this relationship with somebody and they ghost you? So that was one of the questions that came in. And this is something that's pretty common because people get busy or people are not very good at saying, okay, well, I thought this was going to be a fit, but now it's not. And I don't really think this is a good direction. So they just disappear, right? They just kind of stop communicating. So what can you do to re-engage? Most people don't really like confrontations, so saying, hey, what happened isn't always effective, but you can write them a fun email and say, hey, did you get kidnapped by aliens? What happened, right? You can re-engage them by sharing a new resource. So what if you run across this great resource and you think, oh yeah, I was talking with so-and-so and I remember they were really struggling with how to organize all the leads that were coming at them. And Melanie was talking about this close.com, really inexpensive, contact management system. I'm going to share it with them and just let them know I was thinking about them. Be helpful, be of value, be loving, be kind, be generous. People, that's contagious. When you're loving, you're kind, you're generous, and you're always giving first, people are actually going to go out of their way to look for a way to give back to you. It's the secret to being a center of influence that people want to support. Be generous, be kind, be good at what you do, and be of service. Be the person that people want to support. So that's what I've got for you today on building centers of influence. Now, here's the key. Here's the next steps. The next steps are you want to make sure that you make a list of the people you most want to partner up with, the people you would love to align with. And you want to make sure that you are intentional about getting in their sphere. Figure out where they're at, what they're going to do, and how to get with them. Go to their event, go to their mastermind, sign up for their webinars, get into their community, engage, right? Be the person that does the foundational work, and you will be really blown away at what happens on the back end. And then keep nurturing it. Find a way to keep nurturing those relationships, whether it's email, quick text message, phone call, invite them into something else. If this is someone who you believe truly would be a good collaborator, get creative and find a way that's going to open that door and work for you, okay? So keep the questions coming in. I'll keep checking on it and answering them as they come in. And This will be available for 7 days, and then we'll take it down. So let me know, how can I support you? Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention, and that is, what happens if you don't take action on this? Well, this may be a sign that there's a belief or a fear or some self-doubt that's really like draining the possibility out of your business. And what I would highly recommend is that you do some inner work, some mindset work, and create the mindset of someone who's ready to thrive and soar and take big, bold action. Now, my Money DNA program may be the perfect place for you to start. And you can get access to it at money-dna.com. I'll post the link below. If you have not done it yet, you will absolutely want to go and get the training, because, and I would do it today, because I'm going to include 3 months in our Own Your Bold Inner Circle. So when you take this program, and you go through the 6 or the 8 stages of recoding your money DNA, I will also invite you into Own Your Bold, and you'll get access to our Partner Up for Profits training and the 4 foundational trainings that I offer to people in the Own Your Bold Inner Circle. So that is a massive value, and it'll help you really go from being interested and just having a great idea to really getting massive traction in your business. So money-dna.com. If you want to jump on that today, we'll make sure you get put into Own Your Bold Circles, so you'll get access to this month's specialized training on how to partner up profitably. All right, everybody, we'll see you again soon. We've got some more great mini trainings set up for you over the next few weeks, so stay tuned.